God's chosen one. There's something you've been feeling, not quite a thought, not quite a fear, but a pressure, a presence, a silent knock at the door of your spirit that won't go away. You tell yourself it's nothing, that you'll deal with it later, but deep down, you know better. This is not a whisper. This is not a suggestion. This is a summons. And if you ignore it, if you brush it off and choose distraction over devotion, comfort over calling, you may one day cry out for answers, only to find the silence deafening, because the truth is, heaven doesn't shout after you once it's already spoken. It watches and it waits, but not forever. This moment you are in. Now, this exact breath, this specific crossing between awareness and resistance is sacred ground. It's the threshold between who you've been and who you're meant to become. And whether you feel ready or not, the door is already open. You didn't stumble onto this message. You were drawn here. You were marked before you were even born. And the signs, they've been everywhere, but you've been pretending not to notice. You've been calling divine promptings coincidences. You've been labeling your inner unrest as burnout, when in reality, your soul is starving, and yet God is still patient. But there comes a point where even patience is eclipsed by opportunity. And that is where you are right now, not at the edge of danger, but at the edge of destiny. And there is no more room for pretending. You feel misaligned for a reason. You feel stuck for a reason. You feel tired, disconnected, quietly panicked for a reason. Because the path that once carried you to survival is not the one that can carry you to purpose. You've been here too long, lingering on the edges of your own breakthrough, dipping your toe into awakening, only to run back to numbness. And each time you do, the cost grows. Not in punishment, in weight. Spiritual weight, soul fatigue, the ache of knowing you are made for more while refusing to move toward it. But now the signal is louder than ever. The pull is stronger. The unease is more constant, because the divine is not playing games with you. It's giving you one more moment, one more opening, one more chance to rise. Don't turn away this time. Don't tell yourself you'll get serious tomorrow. Don't tell yourself you're just waiting for clarity. Clarity doesn't precede movement, it follows it. That's what so many forget. They pray for signs and ignore the ones already blazing before them. They wait for thunder and overlook the whisper in their chest. They beg God to speak, while muting the very voice within that answers constantly. And you, chosen one, you've heard the voice, over and over, through the patterns, through the pain, through the subtle interruptions of a normal life that never fit you anyway, you've always known. But fear has been clever. Fear wears logic. Fear speaks in delay. Fear hides behind good intentions and spiritual-sounding excuses. But fear has one goal: to keep you still, because fear knows what happens when you move. Everything changes. Chains break, cycles shatter, generations heal. You've heard the message. But will you let it change you, not just inspire you, move you? Obedience is never comfortable, but it is always sacred. In the comments, write, what truth are you ready to stop running from? Like this video if it spoke to the part of you that's tired of delays. Subscribe if you know this wasn't just content, it was confirmation. This is not a performance, it's a crossroads, and your response, your real response, has power. Move now, while the moment is still open. The moment you obey, systems begin to tremble. Darkness loses its grip. Your timeline realigns. And that terrifies the forces that have kept you small. So of course you've been fought. Of course the pressure increases the moment you lean toward obedience. But hear me. Pressure is not punishment. It's proof. You are close. You are too close. Now to turn back. You are too awakened to go numb again. You are too deep to settle for shallow spaces that once felt safe. This is not about hype. This is not about motivation. This is about alignment, sacred alignment, divine positioning, the exact kind of inner shift that can no longer be faked, because faking peace will not create it. Pretending you don't hear the call will not quiet. It only surrender will. And surrender does not mean passivity. It means response. It means action born from knowing. It means movement birthed from remembrance. It means finally saying, I will not waste what heaven has given me another moment longer. Because the truth is, God's chosen ones aren't chosen by default. They're chosen by response. They're chosen because they choose. They say yes when it's inconvenient. They follow the nudge when it makes no sense. They move forward even when everything in them screams to stay. You are being asked to join them, but you can't if you're still looking for reasons not to rise. You will not find them here. What you'll find is a mirror, and in that mirror, a soul that's tired of waiting, a spirit that's aching to breathe, a purpose that's tired of being postponed in the name of comfort. Let this be the moment you stop negotiating with delay. Let this be the moment you recognize you are not waiting on God. God has been waiting on you to listen, to obey, to act, because the signals you keep ignoring are sacred. They are the maps your spirit has been trying to read while your mind keeps reaching for excuses, but there are no more excuses. There is only the next step, and either you take it or you forfeit what's on the other side. Not just the blessing, but the becoming, the version of you that is already alive on the other side of this decision, confident, clear, spiritually aligned, is watching and waiting. She's not an idea, he's not a dream. They're your future, and they cannot emerge while you remain committed to fear. You weren't made for hesitation. You weren't made for partial obedience. You weren't made to live halfway awake. You were made to move when it matters, and this right now matters because heaven is not a force that shouts forever. Eventually it grows quiet, not in anger, but in respect for your will. God will not drag you into destiny. He will invite you, and if you decline the invitation, you can't accuse him of forgetting you later. That's why this message carries weight. It's not hype, it's warning. It's the sound of a door creaking open, one you may never hear this clearly again. So if something in you is stirring, don't numb it. If something inside you is screaming, this is me, this is for me, then say it, claim it. Let your spirit speak louder than your fear and take the step, because once you do, everything begins to move. Chosen one, you heard it. That pause in your chest when the message ended, that ache in your spirit when the silence returned. You heard it. But what are you going to do with it? Because this is where most people stop. They feel the spark, but they don't act on it. They sense the invitation, but they stall. They nod in agreement, but stay still in fear. And that stillness, it comes with a cost. Not always loud, not always visible, but always there. Every moment you delay, every breath you take in hesitation, your soul starts to ache. Not because it's impatient, but because it knows what you're missing. It feels what you're forfeiting. It mourns what you keep postponing. You keep saying you need more time, but time is not standing still. Time is moving, and every day you don't move with it, the gap widens. Not between you and your goals, between you and your alignment. And once that alignment frays, the consequences start to surface. Subtle at first. You feel tired but can't explain why. You lose joy in things you used to love. You find yourself constantly scrolling, searching, sighing. You become restless in your own skin because your soul isn't lazy. It's starved. It's waiting for you to choose it. Not next year, not when it's safer, not when you feel braver. Now, but you keep feeding fear. You call it logic. You call it patience. You call it waiting for the right time. But fear is clever like that. It loves to dress up as wisdom. And as long as you let fear speak, action will always be postponed. But here's the part. no one talks about. Every time you delay, the cost increases, not because God is angry, because purpose is momentum. You don't carry it like a book in a bag, you carry it like a flame, and flames need oxygen. Every time you say, "Not yet," that flame dims, until one day it flickers so low that even you forget what it once felt like to burn with conviction. And that's the real danger. Not failing, but forgetting. Forgetting the sound of your own inner yes. Forgetting how it felt to know something was meant for you. Forgetting that there was once a moment where you were ready to leap. That's the enemy's true goal, not to destroy you, to distract you, because destruction wakes people up, but distraction keeps them comfortably asleep. And that's what you've been battling, chosen one. Not some external crisis, not some dramatic obstacle, but the quiet, dangerous lull of spiritual sedation. You're not defeated, you're distracted, and you've called that comfort. But comfort is a trap when it comes without alignment. It gives you just enough peace to stay still, but never enough clarity to truly live. So let's name it. Let's drag it into the light. The delay you're living in isn't neutral. It's an agreement with a lesser version of your life, a quiet contract you signed with fear. Every time you silenced your inner voice, every time you chose later over now, every time you nodded and stayed still, you agreed to stay small. But God didn't agree. He sent whispers, he sent storms, he sent confirmations so specific they made your heart stop. And still you waited, but you don't have to anymore. You can tear that contract up, you can cancel the delay. You can reject the lie that says clarity comes before movement. Clarity comes through movement. Obedience births revelation, not the other way around. You're not confused, you're resistant. And resistance is not a sign to stop. It's a sign that you're too close for the enemy to stay silent anymore. The noise in your head, the doubt in your gut, the heaviness in your chest. It all gets louder at the edge of breakthrough. Because that's where you are now. At the edge, and the choice is simple. You rise or you rot, because you weren't made to linger in in-between places. You weren't made to carry the weight of a purpose unfulfilled. You weren't made to pretend you didn't hear what you heard. You're not broken, you're breaking open, so don't resist it. Don't negotiate with it. Don't try to bargain your way into partial obedience. There's no such thing. Half surrender is still rebellion, and rebellion has a cost. It numbs your discernment. It clouds your instincts. It rewires your sense of timing. Until one day, what used to feel urgent feels optional, and that is how callings die. Not with a scream, but with a sigh. Chosen one, you are not being punished. You are being positioned. And the pressure you feel now, that's not the enemy. That's the weight of your own becoming. It's not crushing you, it's forging you. But only if you let it, only if you stop waiting for someone to come and carry you into your destiny. No one's coming. Because no one else was chosen to carry what you carry. No one else was wired to do what you do. No one else was given the blueprint you keep ignoring, and you will never feel peace again until you say yes to it. So say yes, now, not out loud, in action. In movement, in decision, in bold, trembling, irrevocable surrender. Because this is the moment you've been circling around for years. This is the part you always knew was coming. This is why nothing else satisfied, and it never will, until you move. Chosen one, there's a reason you feel resistance right now. Not because you're weak, not because you're lost, but because something inside you knows. This is the moment where the old version of you begins to die. And death, even sacred death, doesn't feel gentle. It pulls, it stretches, it burns, and your instinct is to run, back into safety, back into the familiar, back into the numbness you've trained yourself to accept. But you can't run from what lives inside you. You can only delay the inevitable. The version of you that's afraid, hesitant, uncertain. That version is not wrong. It's just expired. It served you in survival. It got you through seasons that nearly crushed you, but now it's costing you your future. because the same mindset that kept you alive in one season will suffocate you in the next. That's what you're feeling now. Not fear, friction between who you were and who you're becoming. And the only way forward is release. Let it die. Not with bitterness, but with honor. Thank the version of you that played small so others could be comfortable. Thank the version of you that kept quiet just to avoid conflict. Thank the version of you that clung to doubt because certainty felt too heavy, and now bury them. Let their story end. Because the longer you carry that identity, the more disconnected you become from the you that's waiting to emerge. The you who doesn't need validation. The you who doesn't apologize for power. The you who doesn't wait for permission to walk in alignment. That version already exists, but you can't step into it while clinging to who you were. God is not asking you to improve your old self. He is asking you to surrender it fully, irrevocably, because transformation isn't renovation, it's resurrection, and resurrection requires a grave. This is where most people stop. They get to the edge of death, feel the heat of the fire, and run back to the illusion of comfort. But not you. You were not sent here to maintain what's dying. You were sent to walk into the fire, to let it burn, and to come out refined. Not broken, reborn. So why are you still negotiating? Why are you still clinging to memories of a version of you that could never survive what's coming? You say you want alignment, but alignment costs. It costs the ego. It costs the image. It costs the illusions that made you feel safe but never made you whole. Are you willing to pay? Are you willing to trade your false peace for real purpose? Are you willing to release being liked in exchange for being obedient? Are you willing to stop curating your life to fit the expectations of people who were never assigned to understand you? This is where the real battle is. Not outside, inside. You're not waiting on God. God is waiting on your funeral, the funeral of your old self, the funeral of your coping mechanisms, the funeral of your excuses, the funeral of your delay. And until that funeral happens, you will keep circling the same lessons, the same patterns, the same spiritual exhaustion. Because God will not resurrect what you refuse to bury. Let it go. Let the old voice fall silent. Let the old cravings lose their pull. Let the version of you that doubts, delays, deflects, fade. Because she is not coming with you. He does not belong in the next dimension of your assignment. You keep asking for clarity, but clarity is waiting for your decision. You keep asking for power, but power is waiting for your surrender. You keep asking for peace, but peace is waiting on your funeral. This is not cruelty. This is divine precision. God cannot build the next thing on top of who you're pretending to be. He needs the real you, the raw you, the willing you, the you who doesn't need it to be easy in order to move, the you who doesn't need full approval in order to rise, the you who doesn't wait for certainty to obey. That's the version heaven partners with. That's the version demons fear, and that's the version your old self was sent to delay. So let it die. Let the tears fall. Let the fear shake. Let the memories scream. But do not go back. Do not entertain the lie that says you were better off before. That lie is nostalgia for numbness, and you don't get to numb anymore. You're awake now, and with that awakening comes responsibility. Responsibility to release what is no longer aligned. Responsibility to embody what you've already been shown. Responsibility to become the you that you've glimpsed in moments of silence. The version of you that never needed applause to be obedient. So what's keeping you tethered? The fear of being misunderstood, the fear of failing, the fear of becoming too different. Let it all burn, because what's on the other side of this fire is you, the real you, the called you, the chosen you. And if you ignore this process, if you try to carry the dead into the living, you won't be punished. You'll be out of sync, and misalignment carries its own consequence. It feels like exhaustion you can't shake. It feels like doubt that won't die. It feels like delay you can't explain, and it will keep circling until you surrender fully. So let today be the day the funeral begins. Let today be the day you close the chapter you've been too afraid to finish. Not because it's easy, but because it's time. This is not the end. It's the beginning of everything real, but only if you're willing to bury the false. But before you bury what no longer belongs, you must tell the truth. Not to the world, not to the ones who doubted you, but to yourself. Admit how long you've known. Admit how many times you've silenced the whisper. Admit how many versions of obedience you rehearsed but never fully performed. Because pretending to forget is not the same as innocence. And you've known, chosen one. You've felt the pull. You've seen the signs. You've tasted the glimpse of who you were always meant to be. But fear wrapped itself in logic, in timing, in excuses so spiritual they sounded holy. But God was never asking you to understand. He was asking you to let go. Let go of the illusion of control. Let go of the image that kept you safe but suffocated your soul. Let go of the life you curated to be palatable when heaven was trying to make you powerful. You weren't created to fit in. You were created to break systems, to walk in rooms and carry conviction, to stand in silence and carry weight. But that version of you, the one who carries fire, cannot emerge while you protect the ashes of your past. So gather the ashes, the fear, the people-pleasing, the self-sabotage, the false humility masked as delay. Gather it all and lay it at the altar, because what you won't release will become what keeps you bound, and heaven is too full of urgency to keep waiting on a version of you that was only meant to survive, not lead. This is your funeral, but it's also your freedom. So bury what you were never meant to carry and rise into who you've already been anointed to become. Chosen one, you've asked what it takes. You've begged for clarity. You've wept for direction. You've waited for a confirmation so loud it would drown out your doubt. But now the answer stands before you, not as a lightning strike, not as a burning bush, but as a whisper so deep inside your spirit, it feels like breath. And that answer is this: obedience will cost you. Not just convenience, not just comfort, but everything built on fear. That's why you've hesitated. Because you sensed it all along. The moment you say yes, not just with your lips, but with your life, something shifts. The illusions lose power. The games collapse. The people who liked the silent version of you fall away, and that is the beginning of true alignment. But it doesn't come cheap. It never did. Every calling carries a cross, not as punishment, as preparation. Because the weight of your next requires strength forged in letting go. Letting go of who claps for you. Letting go of who misunderstands you. Letting go of needing to be seen before you're ready to be used. Because obedience isn't public, it's private, it's lonely, it's quiet rooms where no one cheers, no one affirms, no one watches. It's walking away from open doors because you heard no in your spirit. It's choosing obscurity when your ego craves spotlight. It's saying, not my will. Even when everything in you wants to scream, but what about me? That's why obedience feels like dying. Because it is. Not to who you are, but to who you were never supposed to be. You weren't born to be liked. You weren't born to fit in. You weren't born to blend. You were born to obey. And obedience rarely makes sense to the crowd because the crowd wants results. But heaven watches for response, and your response is overdue. Yes, you've prayed. Yes, you've fasted. Yes, you've asked for signs. But signs don't substitute for surrender. Surrender is action. It's not the feeling of readiness, it's the decision to move despite the fear. Because chosen one, obedience isn't about understanding, it's about trust. God doesn't require your clarity, He requires your commitment. He never asked you to see the whole map, He only asked you to take the next step. but you've made an idol out of information. You've bowed to the God of why. You've delayed action until the details made sense, and in doing so, you've missed moments. You've forfeited timing. You've walked in circles around territory that was already yours, simply because you wouldn't say yes when it didn't feel safe. But safety is not the goal. Obedience is, because it's in obedience that power flows, that doors open, that peace enters. You've been waiting for peace to lead you into obedience, but peace doesn't precede the step. It follows it. And until you move, you'll keep mislabeling anxiety as discernment and fear as wisdom. They are not the same. Fear says, wait until it makes sense. Obedience says, move because he said so. And you know what he said. You know the nudge. You know the pull. You know the still small voice that keeps echoing the same instruction, no matter how many times you've tried to silence it with logic. You're not waiting on a new word. You're running from the one you already heard. But God is not moved by your excuses. He is moved by your obedience. And until you say yes, everything else is noise. Every other prayer is distraction. Every other plan is delay. Because partial obedience is still rebellion. And rebellion, no matter how spiritually disguised, still separates you from alignment. So what will it take? How long will you stall? How many confirmations will you request? How many more nights will you weep, knowing full well what you're refusing to do? This is not confusion. This is disobedience, and the longer you stay in it, the heavier the weight becomes, not because God is punishing you, but because your soul cannot thrive in contradiction. You were not made to carry the tension of knowing and not moving. Your bones were not designed to hold back fire. Your mind was not created to live in duality. Obedience is oxygen. Without it, you suffocate in your own calling. So take the step. Lose the friends, say the no, send the message, walk through the door, shut the other one. Whatever he told you, do it. Not tomorrow, not when it feels better, not when you've had more sleep or figured it all out. Now, this moment is holy because it is still open, and there will come a time when it won't be. Not because he stopped loving you, but because the window moved. And what was once your moment will become someone else's mission, because purpose does not wait forever. Heaven is urgent, and your delay does not change the divine timeline. So if you want in, really in, you have to move. Not just feel, not just cry, not just write it in a journal or repost a quote. Move, and when you do, the whole world won't shift instantly, but your spirit will. The peace you've been begging for will finally settle, because peace is not found in knowing, it's found in obeying. And the cost, yes, it's high, but it's worth it, because nothing you lose in obedience compares to what you gain in alignment. Let them go, let it go, let the plan go. Say yes, and let heaven show you why obedience was always the safest place after all. Chosen one? Do you wonder why it got worse the moment you started waking up? Why the pressure mounted? Why the distractions multiplied? Why old temptations resurfaced and dormant wounds ripped open again? It wasn't random. It wasn't coincidence. It was calculated. Because hell does not waste ammunition on people who are asleep. It only fights those who are rising. And you, chosen one, began to rise. You started to say no to what used to keep you bound. You started to confront what you used to tolerate. You started to question what you used to accept. And in doing so, you disrupted systems, spiritual systems, generational systems, internal systems of fear and delay. That disruption made you a threat, not because you were perfect, not because you had it all together, but because you moved. And movement terrifies darkness, because movement is obedience in motion, and obedience reclaims territory. You think the attacks are a sign of failure? They are evidence of impact, because the moment you aligned your life with heaven's whisper, hell raised its voice, not to stop you, to scare you, because fear is hell's last weapon. When it can't control you with comfort, it will try to paralyze you with fear. But fear is not truth. Fear is the echo of what used to control you, begging for one more day of your obedience. Don't give it. Don't go silent again just because your voice shook the first time you used it. Don't step back into patterns just because healing feels unfamiliar. Don't run from the fire just because it burns away what you can't carry forward. The attacks intensified because your awareness increased. You saw through the illusion. You named the lies. You stopped apologizing for your anointing, and heaven took notice. So did hell. That's why they came. That's why you felt the weight. That's why everything started feeling harder. Because you stopped walking in circles and started stepping into authority. But authority must be tested. It must be proven, not to God, to you. Because you don't know the power you carry until you stand in front of what used to scare you, and it backs down. And that's what's happening now. The noise is rising, the doubt is pressing, the pressure is real, but it's not the end. It's confirmation. Confirmation that you've been marked, that you've been assigned, that your life is not common, and therefore your battles cannot be either. You're not cursed. You're being cleared of old weight, cleared of dead attachments, cleared of counterfeit identities, because destiny can't fit in your old framework. It requires room. It requires strength. It requires resistance to expose your roots. So let the resistance come. Let the noise grow louder. Let the fire surround you, but do not stop, because the very fact that you're under pressure means that you're pressing through. And every time you don't give in, you gain ground, you gain clarity, you gain authority, not the kind that shouts, the kind that stands still while everything around it shakes and doesn't move. That kind of authority only comes through fire, through midnight prayers, through tears cried in silence, through praise raised in pain, through standing up when your legs shake, through continuing when it would be easier to quit. You have that authority now, and the enemy knows it. He just hopes you don't. He hopes you misread the warfare as punishment instead of preparation. He hopes you see the delay as rejection instead of refinement. He hopes you walk away right before the breaking shifts into birthing. But now you see, now you know. Now you name the patterns. Now you recognize the voice of distraction. Now you discern between divine timing and demonic delay. You are no longer blind. And the attacks prove it, because vision is dangerous. Revelation is dangerous. Obedience is dangerous. And you, chosen one, you are now dangerous to the systems that once fed on your fear. So let them fear you. Let the whispers come. Let the shaking continue. But don't you move. Don't you doubt. Don't you forget who stood with you when no one else did. Heaven has never left your side, even in the attacks, especially in the attacks, because fire doesn't scare heaven. Fire proves heaven, and you, child of God, are walking through fire not to be destroyed, but to emerge untouchable. So press on. This is not the end. This is the testing of your mantle, and when it's over, they won't recognize you. Not because you changed, but because you finally became visible. Chosen one. This is the final warning. Not in wrath, not in anger, but in mercy. Because when God repeats himself, it's not because he forgot what he said the first time. It's because you've delayed hearing him the way you were meant to. You heard the message. You felt the nudge. You knew the moment, but you hesitated. And now the window is narrowing. Heaven isn't waiting forever, because this assignment wasn't only about you, it was about who would be reached through you. And for every day you delayed, someone else stayed in pain, someone else stayed in confusion, someone else remained bound, because your obedience was always bigger than your comfort. And now you feel the urgency pressing in. The fire is no longer external, it's internal. Your soul is screaming for alignment, But your flesh keeps negotiating. You've said, I'm not ready. What if I fail? Maybe I misheard God. I'll wait until the pressure lifts. But what if the pressure is the confirmation? What if the weight you're feeling is the call becoming unbearable? Not because it's too much, but because you've been carrying it too long without releasing it through action. The gift isn't breaking you. The delay is. You think it's God holding back the promise. But it's you holding back your yes. And here's the truth nobody wants to say. If you keep resisting, if you keep ignoring, if you keep treating the holy like it's optional, you will forfeit the moment. And when the consequences arrive, don't. Blame God later. Don't say he didn't warn you. Don't say he was silent. Don't say he abandoned you, because he sent whispers. He sent confirmations. He sent this very message. You didn't miss the signal, you rejected it, with delay, with excuses, with spiritual laziness dressed as waiting on the Lord. God was never the one delaying, you were, and the painful truth, he may still fulfill the plan, but not with you, because purpose doesn't die, but assignments can be reassigned. If you don't carry what was placed in your hands, it will be given to someone else, not out of spite, out of necessity, because souls are on the line, and heaven will not wait for your feelings to catch up with your calling. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being obedient. It's not about having the full strategy. It's about saying yes to the next step. You keep waiting for God to make it easier. He's waiting for you to make it holy, to treat your life like the altar it was meant to be, to treat this assignment like the eternal impact it truly holds. So here's the line. You've arrived at it again, and this time the stakes are higher, because now you know, you've heard, you've felt, you've been awakened. You can't unknow it, you can't unfeel it, you can't pretend this didn't reach you. So if you turn away now, it's not ignorance, it's rebellion, and rebellion has its own consequences, not always thunder and lightning. Sometimes it looks like doors that never open, connections that never happen, peace that never stays, anointing that never fully flows. You can't live in half obedience and expect full favor. You can't carry half purpose and expect full alignment. You can't ignore the voice of God and then question why you feel spiritually dry. So let's say it plainly, you've come to a holy crossroads, and the only way forward is through surrender. There is no shortcut, there is no bypass, there is no second path that avoids the pain of obedience, but there is glory on the other side, the kind of glory that makes the pressing worth it, the kind of glory that silences every doubt, the kind of glory that sets others free just by standing near you. Because when you say yes, fully, loudly, without reserve, heaven moves, chains break, curses fall, atmospheres shift, not because you're powerful, but because you're aligned, and that alignment is what hell fears most. That's why it fought you, not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous when surrendered. So don't let the final test be the one that breaks you. Let it birth you, let it refine you, let it mark you for the very thing you were born to carry. And when you do, when you finally let go of the delay, the fear, the shame, the comfort, you'll realize the cost was high, yes, but the regret of saying no would have cost everything. This is your turning point. This is your line in the sand. Don't cross it in silence. Don't drift back to sleep. Don't wait until the fire goes out. Say yes, now, loud, bold, final, and let heaven recognize your voice again. Let hell tremble at your obedience. Let your purpose finally breathe, because this is it. Your time is now, not someday, not when you feel ready, now. And if you ignore this, if you walk away and return to numbness, if you silence what just got stirred, when the silence returns, when the consequences arrive, when the peace doesn't follow, don't blame God later. Because he sent the message, he sent it with urgency, he sent it in love, he sent it through fire, through pressure, through whispers, through this very word, and now you must choose. What will your answer be? Chosen one, you think you have more time, but time in the realm of purpose isn't measured by clocks, it's measured by windows. And windows don't ask for permission to close, they simply do. You've stood here before, right at the edge of surrender, right at the line between almost and obedience, and each time you paused. You told yourself you just needed a little more peace, a little more clarity, a little more confirmation. But heaven didn't require more clarity. It required movement, because what you call waiting is really resisting, and what you call preparation is often delay wearing spiritual language. But now, something is different. This moment doesn't feel soft. It feels weighted, heavy with consequence. Not because God is angry, but because heaven knows what this moment unlocks. If you say yes, and the enemy does too, that's why the noise is louder, that's why the doubt is deeper, that's why the pressure feels like it might crush you, because what you are carrying is real, and what waits on the other side of your obedience is divine. So here it is, the edge, the place where comfort dies and calling breathes. Will you move? Will you act? Will you say yes with your life instead of just your lips? This isn't about hype, it's about heaven's timeline intersecting yours, and you feeling that sacred collision in your bones. You weren't just warned, you were invited, and invitations, when ignored, become missed history, but when answered, they become legacy. So chosen one, don't hesitate now. Don't trade alignment for comfort. Don't forfeit the promise for fear. You are not being rushed. You are being rescued from a lifetime of almost obeying. Let this be the moment you cross the line, not just emotionally, but eternally. Say yes and watch everything shift.